Good midday to you. This is the midday moment for June the 15th, 2026, here on Following Him, the Disciple Life. As you can see, the direction my beard was going when the video started, but getting a little bit of wind out today, so hopefully we're not going to have the disaster with the phone getting blown off the stand and such. Today, want to take a moment because we take these moments to give a disciple's perspective on oftentimes on what things are going on in the world, and sometimes we use these segments to deal with other things too. But I want to take a discipleship perspective on recent events connected to the White House and the idea of inconsistent standards, because we did have this UFC fight that just took place. Now, I'm not here to talk about or debate the pros and cons of this sort of entertainment. That would be a whole other discussion. The masculine side of me very much enjoys the Rocky movies and such, so I do understand why it is people do get into that, but that's for another discussion. What seems to be the response from some, and not really seems to be, it does seem to be a response from some, kind of to put it in general terms, feels that this is beneath the dignity of the White House. Now, the White House has definitely hosted many things of an entertainment value over the years. And I think many people would argue the exact same thing when it comes to the Pride events, hosting the drag queens and such. And I know some people would have no issue with that. Now, there's definitely a discussion to be had there. We're not going to be dealing with the topic of cross-dressing or transgenderism or homosexuality today, but definitely a segment of the country that has a major issue with that, and that sort of event would not represent them. But then many people are not going to have a problem with that. There have definitely been concerts that have been hosted under politicians that would be on the left. And yet a UFC fight is hosted, and all of a sudden this is just terrible. I read in the book of Proverbs, chapter 20, verse 10, diverse weights and diverse measures, they are both alike, an abomination to the Lord. Also in verse 23, diverse weights are an abomination to the Lord, and dishonest scales are no good. In other words, when you have two sets of weights that you can switch them out to cheat people, you can be inconsistent. And sometimes in weighing things, we use two sets of measures. We use a certain standard when it comes to what our guy does. And by the way, people on the right do this too. I've definitely seen people defend things from our current president that, to be blunt, are indefensible from a Christian standpoint. Particularly some of the things that he says definitely have been, just to be blunt, have been very un-Christ-like. But people, when it comes to their person, they have one set of measures. But when the other side does it, like if something's at the White House, it needs to be the most dignified thing ever. Most can't be controversial, can't be any, and it's inconsistent standards. If you're going to criticize somebody that is in a governing position, there's definitely moral things to consider. There's definitely policy things to consider. And, biblical principle would relate to even things like economic policy and stuff. There's definitely things to discuss when it comes to that sort of thing, our current presidency and such. So if you're going to criticize a politician, you have genuine disagreement with policy and, their stance on things, that's one thing. But then when you have just something random, it's like, well, this thing that really has nothing to do with policy or governance of the country, but I'm just going to say this is just horrible, this is just bad. And yet you have other things of the same caliber under your guy, and it's not a big deal. Diverse weights and diverse measures, they're both alike, an abomination to the Lord. You have a good rest of the day. Hope to have up Monday with the Messiah here in